Middlekauff! Hey!
Yo!
What's up, everybody? Stream. And this is only a stream. This is not a podcast. You are just watching a stream. Middlekauff thought about playing golf today, but put it off because he is a true journalist in case Jimmy G got traded.
Well, it's just the time to work. I had the thought, it's free agency. This is just not the time. I can push it off till next week. It's just not the time to fuck around, guys. It's time to feed my family. It's time to work. It's time to be on call. It's time to work. Like Rob Manfred and Ken Rosenthal, who just tweeted, "How far will the owners go?" Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th. They just canceled up till April 14th. It's like, hey, Ken, they don't give a shit. They're going to cancel until they get what they want.
Yeah, they don't care.
They do not.
But not us. We care. We're on call. This is my beeper right here. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, shit. Beep, beep.
You think my golf ball-sized baseballs gained, or bags gained any traction?
I don't know. We should check one of the backfields, John, at Dunedin. There's always that one of the spring training parks in Dunedin, Florida. Everyone's always. I love. What I miss about spring training? Not Duval. What I miss about spring training is people just referring to towns in Arizona and Florida as if everyone knows what that means. Like, headed down to Mesa. Like, okay, who is the Cubs are there? Who's there? I don't know who's in Mesa. Like, headed down to Coral Gables.
One time on a scouting trip, I think it was to Tampa Bay. It was either Tampa or Jacksonville. I'm pretty sure it's Tampa. You have to walk down to go to your car, and that's where a long strip of, I think, the Red Sox, and they basically have where they play spring training. It looks like a replica of Fenway.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. And I think
they had
Yankees
one of those
have something
Fresno.
similar too.
I played softball at one in Fresno before. It like Wrigley and Fenway.
Yeah, to me that's pretty sweet. I just what are these baseball players doing right now? Just kind of hanging.
Well, here's the confusing part. The minor leaguers are at spring training.
No, not the guys on the 40-man roster, right?
No, the minor leaguers, yeah.
So if you're on the 40-man roster, you're not, but like Hunter Bishop, you think he's a spring training?
I don't know. Should check in with Hunter.
With
Bish music. I don't know. I'm confused. I love baseball. I see some guys in uniform doing like BP. I don't know.
Have you noticed? I flipped around a couple times, and MLB Network has had like Texas versus Oklahoma. Just like they've had random college baseball games on.
I watched, was that the game? No, I watched a game they were playing at the Astro Stadium, and I'm like, it looks kind of cool.
Not a terrible idea.
What I was telling you about the rant I heard on MLB radio the other day where the guy's like, we're getting past. We got to play. One of them was, college baseball started. We're getting past. I would not be worried about it.
No one cares.
Hey, YouTube. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Carson Wentz got traded. Jimmy Garoppolo's trade market. Whatever else on this live stream. Live stream only. This is a YouTube special. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you for your support. Now is the time. No better time. Call now.
We'll hang up and listen.
Hang up and listen.
Are you able to right now change to Sleep Number? It feels like we've given Indeed a lot of run this week, just mix it up. Or is that something you have to do separate?
Well, let's see. If I have a Sleep Number queued up, I can do it.
If not that big a deal. I was just thinking, just try to give our partners, you got to be good to the partners.
Yeah, good to the partners. Good to the partners. It's an inside joke, but it works.
You get long-term deals. You gotta take care of them both.
Yeah, let me see if I can whip up a little. So you had something else you wanted to hit on. So what was the other thing you had?
Yeah, that was mainly it. Tiger Woods is going to the Hall of Fame tonight. I didn't even know there was a golf Hall of Fame, but I guess Tiger's going in it. I love a good Hall of Fame. I guess it would probably only happen in golf. Maybe it could happen in racing. It's impossible in football because you got to be 5 years out. It's impossible in baseball. Basketball is this weird mix where actually coaches go in while they're still coaching. Players are out. I always find it weird when a Hall of Fame guy goes in. Tiger's unique because it felt like his career was over, but it's kind of clear he walked in, hat backwards with Charlie, like he no sleeve. Like I think Tiger's coming back. But when you go into a Hall of Fame and you're still active, I guess in acting, right, you could have like Robert De Niro or Leo in a Hall of Fame and he can still do movies. But when I think Hall of Fame, and maybe it's because, you think team sports, it's like, it's finite. Like Bill Belichick's not going to the Hall of Fame until he retires from coaching. Right? Like Andy Reid's not going to go into the Hall of Fame and be like, see you guys in 2 weeks, me and Mahomes. It's like he'll be done. I just find Hall of Fames, kind of fascinating. But I also I was thinking Peyton Manning went in, right, with John Lynch's crew. Tiger's going in. I think the Hall of Fames have been devalued a little bit, just in general. When I think Hall of Fame, I think Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Tiger Woods. When we start getting, the next tier down, even like Kevin Garnett or something, like Tim Duncan, when you start getting is this guy a Hall of Famer? To me, if you have to ask the question, I love the guy. Ton of respect for him. He was a stud when I was a kid, and they drafted him from Notre Dame. Came to a powerhouse team. He basically showed up the equivalent of the Yankees or the Warriors. Immediate starter, Bryant Young. Boom. Immediate starter, 94. Started on a team that was one of the best teams ever. But really good player. I mean, fucking awesome. But when I think Hall of Fame D tackles, I don't know if I think Bryant Young. And I'm not trying to diminish, but I just feel like the Hall of Fame is just letting a lot of guys like that, especially in football, where it feels like the last decade, it's just had a lot of guys. And to me, I don't have a problem with the older guys. I didn't watch. I remember when Ken Stabler got in. Remember he had to wait forever, and then he died. And it was and I remember all the Papa was it's bullshit that a guy like him. Then you look back, Ken Stabler probably should have been in. But I just think there's a lot of guys, and maybe Bryant Young's closer.
I'll tell you, Bryant Young is on Gil Brandt's list of the 30 greatest defensive tackles of all time.
One day I was in the car. He might be a bad example because I was in the car, and Mayoko, who I think made the pitch for him in the room, said the thing that got him over the top, he's like, I started going out to talk to all the best guards and centers and offensive coordinators of his era, and whenever I'd bring him up, they immediately, they talked about how dominant he was. And so I started quoting all these people in the room. He'd be like, Steve Hutchinson on Bryant Young, right? Norv Turner on Bryant Young. And you start doing that, and it kind of validates your position, right? Mm. You utilize, it's like, hey, so-and-so from the, Seattle, you were the one that pitched us on Steve Hutchinson, why he's a great player, and now he's in, right? Or, you from the Cowboys, Larry Allen, he's in. I'm telling you right now, Larry Allen's I couldn't block the guy. So then you go, there has to be something to that, right? When you hear Peyton Manning or Tom Brady talk about Ed Reed, now he's a bad example because my mom could watch Ed Reed and he's great. But I just like a good Hall of Fame. Remember the crew that was Greg Maddux, Randy Johnson. I guess Greg wasn't in that, but it was Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez. That's the headlining crew. Those are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, but I do think there's a level between Greg Maddux and what was the one a few years ago that
was it Harold Baines?
Harold Baines, everyone got all worked up. Tony La Russa was like, how dare you, motherfucker.
He was pissed.
There's a line between, because there's only so many Greg Madduxes, and I agree.
Well, that's my question. Should those guys also be in his club?
But I would say there's a gap between, because if the club was only Greg Madduxes, you wouldn't
it'd be hard to have people going in every year. It'd be hard to have events. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question then is the Hall of Fame, especially in the three, I guess basketball. I think baseball and football are much closer to each other. Would you agree with that? It's harder to get in,
Yeah, basketball. Two Hall of Fame. There's a basketball Hall of Fame, and then there's a pro basketball Hall of Fame, I think.
Yeah, and they kind of intertwine. It's hard to keep up with. Baseball and football are clearly just Major League Baseball, the NFL.
Right.
So is it really just more about having a yearly event than just letting Greg Maddux's and Peyton Manning's in?
No, I think there is a place in the Hall of Fame for people that weren't as good as Greg Maddux, but were better than Harold Baines, that are Hall of Famers. And, the club doesn't have to be the small. We want it to be greats, but then there are legends like Maddux, legend, Bonds, not in, legend, Griffey, legend, right? Those are legends. There are other players that are greats that weren't Barry Bonds and Greg Maddux and
Jeff Kent
Griffey Jr. Yeah, I would put. Yeah, see that one is. I don't know. I got to look. Where Jeff kind of cooked the book because he played second base, so because you get a lot of positional comps, but you know what I mean. I think Buster Posey's a Hall of Famer. He's not Greg Maddux, but I think he's better than Harold Baines.
I agree.
So that would be my take on that. Did you say Tim Duncan's not a Hall of Famer?
No, he is. No,
okay.
But to me, when I think Tim Duncan, like he's a high-end Hall of Famer, right? Like
Yeah. There was some confusion in the chat about what you meant, so I just wanted.
No, I meant Tim Duncan. I think Tim Duncan's like a top 10 player all time. I saw someone in the chat about Dion. I didn't watch the video, but someone said that like the Hard Knocks version that Barstool has done on Dion is actually pretty entertaining, like him at Jackson State. Did you see? I didn't click on the video, but his 2 toes amputated when he was in the hospital.
I just saw. Is that why he is it? So this is an old story. This is new information. It's old. It's why he was in the wheelchair with his legs up. Is that what happened?
Well, I think he had surgery on the what's it called? Not the splinter, turf toe from of his playing career that never really got better. Had surgery. I guess there were complications from the surgery. So while he was coaching at Jackson State, a little like Steve Kerr style, he was in so much pain. Goes to the doctor. And remember, he didn't coach. Not that I watched Jackson State, but I just followed it on the internet like for several weeks of their season. And it turns out I don't think he publicized this. 2 toes, because I was thinking about this.
So that happened. It didn't just happen. That happened back during the season.
I think when he came back on the wheelchair, like in his foot, I think 2 toes were missing. Can you imagine, like when you just think like all-time fastest human beings, right? Obviously there are Usain Bolts and the Michael Johnsons, but I would say of people that played pro sports, Dion would jolt immediately to the top of the list. He lost 2 of the things that made him the greatest at what he did. Like it was like, Dion could probably run a 4.44 backwards. That was always the thing. Like Dion's speed, and now he's missing 2 toes. I mean, that's I can you imagine being a guy that hung your hat on just I was the fastest motherfucker every time I stepped anywhere in my entire life, and now you look down and 10 of the things that made you the fastest, 2 of them are missing.
Crazy.
It would obviously just mess with you a little visually, but just think about like if you or me had 2 toes amputated, ultimately like only if I had those 2 toes back, I could do what like that I was really doing. As long as I could still walk, his toes were a huge part of the guy's life.
Were though, but yeah.
But when you just say Deion Sanders, most people think like he's one
we
of
know
the
which.
greatest
Did you say which
athletes of all
toes?
time. I don't know. I would guess some smaller toes, not the bigger one. But I don't know why I'd assume that.
Carson Wentz got traded today. The Commanders get Carson Wentz. The Colts get a 3rd-round pick in this year's draft and a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft that could convert to a 2nd based on last year's incentives. Now, last year's incentives involved 70% of the snaps. Remember, when the Eagles traded Wentz to the Colts, it was for a 3rd and a 2nd that would become a 1st if Wentz played 70% of his snaps. So that means that this trade is for 2/3, and one of the 3rds can become a 2nd if Wentz plays.
So they just rolled over the deal, but just changed the 1st.
Isn't that how you read this, right?
That convert to a 2nd based on last year's incentives, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. Have you?
I have not either. But isn't that how you read it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else you could read it, right?
Pretty stunning. The trade was stunning. Wentz getting traded was stunning. Wentz getting traded for
they were going to.
It was to me. Yeah, I thought he'd get cut. I didn't think someone was going to acquire Carson Wentz. Did you?
I mean, 27-7. There just aren't that many quarterbacks. I mean, we'll dive into Jimmy. He's just a more physically gifted player than Jimmy. Honestly, the thing about Carson Wentz, he has been pretty durable the last several years. And do you know what the Commanders would do to be 9-7 headed into Week 18 with a chance to get in the playoffs? I mean, Ron Rivera would sign up for that immediately, right?
Yeah.
He'd be like, can we also play the Jags? Like, the Carson Wentz was not as bad as the people talk about him. They traded him, guy, and I was actually on the phone with a buddy before we hopped on, and I was asking him, like, the buzz around the combine on him, and, this guy may or may not be in a building that Carson used to be in. It's not as obviously the play is not perfect, but everyone acknowledges that. If his play was like his play, but it was like, you know what? We talked about him like Jimmy. Carson's a fucking dude, man. People love him. Quentin Nelson on the boys. Every Wednesday they'd come over for beers and wings and film at his house. He had a film room. It's the opposite. People think he's weird. He does not interact well with people. I think a huge reason they got rid of him was the person, not the player. And I think the trade still shows you, like, like I just think there's something there with the player, and I wonder if like the Steelers, like I bet the Steelers would have taken him, maybe not for that price, but like they were probably like, yeah, we'll just give you a third for him. 27-7 and a guy that can just keep you afloat. There's something to be said for that, isn't there? Again, if
yes,
throws you
yes. There are half of the league is true starting worthy quarterbacks, and the other half is not.
Well,
so,
and his contract starting next year is really it becomes Jimmy. It's year to year, so this doesn't mean it. So you're basically just renting him for a year, a third, or trying him out.
But I do think there's a difference, right, between the Eagles, a team who had won a championship, had some equity, were in a position of resetting by trading him, and a Colts team who was kind of on the verge, we thought, of just being a solid quarterback away. Carson going to a guy who knew him when he was younger, liked him. They went and got him. Stable organization, stable situation, and they couldn't have got him out of there. I mean, they could have got him out of there a little faster, but they got him out of there pretty fast.
I'm not saying it's not stunning that
after investing in him.
The Colts situation in a vacuum, how that played out, yeah, stunning. If you would have said last year, everyone was betting like this thing's going to work. They'll be a double-digit win team. They're going to be in the playoffs. They'll probably win the division. And then but to me, once we had the information and once everything started leaking the last month, it was clear like they were over him. Whether it was the owner, whether it was the general manager, it might just be as simple as like our locker room doesn't love him, so we can't stand behind him. That to me is when I say it's not stunning or shocking, just because we've had the buildup, right? Like to me, Russell Wilson, even though we've had a buildup for a year, that was honestly, guy, that's one of the all-time holy shit. I double-checked Adam Schefter. Did you? Click on
I did. Yes.
Carson was just because like the Commanders, the teams, his story now, back-to-back years getting traded, first guy since Sam Bradford. And part of it, guys, the fall from grace. I mean, he's I would say of athletes, all-time fall from grace. Given his position, given he got a huge contract, given his just physical attributes, he might have been propped up a little bit by the market that he played in Philly, but we had watched him enough on Sunday and Monday night games to realize, like, God, I fucking like this guy. People with the Eagles loved him, guy. Like
I
the
really
team
like
and the coaches.
My only issue with all-time fall from grace is I don't think he was at the top that long.
When I say all-time, I just mean the distance. Just
but
where he went.
But think about it. Like, you're right. They're 11-2. He's an MVP candidate. He gets hurt. They win the championship without him, and he never wins 10 games again.
Yeah.
And one thing I do wonder, everything you described about the guy, plus they lost to the Jags on the last day of the season. Ugh.
Yeah.
If he throws 4 touchdowns and they blow the doors off the Jags and go to the playoffs, maybe it's different. But if we're gonna put up with you, you got to win. You can't be a loser and a pain in the ass. And by their I know they went 9, and I'm not saying I don't think he's a loser, but they lost a must-win game against a bad team. So if we can't trust you, then what are we doing here?
Well, when I tweeted out giving myself credit, part obviously was tongue in cheek, but part of it was like, at any moment, what if I told you, you're like, bro, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson, the Pittsburgh's 3-way trade, and I'm just like fucking out somewhere on hole 4. Like, what an idiot! Like, we
just get you in.
You don't recover from that. Not when you know it's coming. Like, there was just a standard that should be set when you know it's coming. Like you're playing to get into the playoffs. To me, if they had played the Titans, let's say, or the Steelers or the Chiefs, it wouldn't have been as crazy. It was the Jags. And remember, the build-up to that week is like, it's kind of weird. They haven't won there since 14, but it was like, no, not this team. Like, no way. And then, I'm at the Rams game looking up at the circular thing. And it's like, it's 23-6. What is going on? They got their ass kicked. There are certain things in life you don't recover from. I would not be able to look at myself in the mirror if Jimmy got traded and I was fucking around when it's clear Jimmy might get traded. You don't recover from losing, which it was a playoff game. Right? Like Herbert, you can recover from losing that game. It wasn't his fault. Like his coach was being an idiot, right? Like the Chargers can recover from that. I think the Colts might just be like, we had a stink on us from that game that we needed to kind of get off of us, and
Yeah.
it really starts with him.
Yeah.
I honestly never was he that terrible? I know he threw the one pick.
No, I think it was more that just the whole thing. It's the like you could lose that game to 25 other teams. Maybe there's nobody quite as bad as losing.
Well, let's say they had a normal quarterback, like they had drafted Carson Wentz, the owner loved him, and he just had an off game. Wouldn't you say the coach might get fired in a situation like that? Like you just lay an egg, and the coach had kind of been on, like hadn't proven that much. Like,
yeah,
wouldn't the coach typically get blamed? Feels like he got blamed instead of the coach in that situation, right?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I would say it feels like they were looking for a reason, and they got plenty of reasons. Again, if they win that,
but
game,
it wasn't Frank's greatest day at the office.
No, it wasn't.
Clear.
But I don't think Carson got blamed for that loss. I think that loss is part of why he's gone. I think winning that game could have saved him, but I think their attitude. It's not that we lost that game. It's that we lost that game. Part of it's we were in position. That game mattered. Part of it is like, did he miss a start? Or did he get back in time because they changed the rule for him, right? Part of it was I know they spent some of their season trying to find other quarterbacks in case they needed other quarterbacks, in case Carson tested positive and couldn't play in a game.
Well, see, that's what I get back to the equity he had. Darius Leonard, their star middle linebacker, did not get the vaccine and miss games, and they don't care at all. They love the guy. He's their team captain. So I think it has more to do, like, they were just off on 100%. The guy. You know,
100%. They were wrong fast.
My theory is pretty simple on him. That when Frank was around him, and any human that's new to a job, whether you're an NFL player, whether you're a fucking podcast host, or whether you're a sales guy, early on in your tenure at a job, you're not taking your shoes off and putting your feet up on the couch or the desk and fucking around. You're just on your P's and Q's. By the third or fourth year at radio, you're talking shit about everyone. And you're putting everyone's job in jeopardy because your lips are a little loose. When Frank was around Carson, he was young, he was hungry to prove himself. It was more about fitting in than worrying about himself. He had a lot to prove. He was still fighting just for respect in the league. Frank left after that second year, right? Because Josh leaves and then he ends up jumping back after the Super Bowl year. So Frank, the guy that he knew, is it fair to say might have been kind of a different guy? Maybe just Carson's true colors came out once he got money, once he just got comfortable is probably the wrong word, but didn't have to worry about like proving himself. He's just a different human. Like the guy Frank thought he was getting, maybe the young, hungry, young guy was different than the guy Frank got.
Yep. Also, I do think, having watched Carson a lot this year, 27-7 is, I think, is a little misleading to how good he was. I don't think he was quite as good as that number makes it seem. He was a bit of a roller coaster every time I watched him. Left-handed passes, two-handed passes from the grasp. He threw that pick six in his own end zone, right?
Which, remember, was the right move.
It was the right move. But you know what I'm saying? Like, do you agree that 27-7, while better than we thought it was and deserves to be respected on its own, is probably better than he looked when you watched him?
But we're talking about him 27-7. You could have a season where like this guy played like a top 10 quarterback. We're not saying that. But people, I'd say consistently, when his name's brought up, talk about him like he's a bottom 6 or 7 quarterback. And I think what Washington would tell you, listen, does he have his flaws? And do we got to work on this guy? And maybe me, Ron, and Jack will try to get him to be a guy's guy. But he is dramatically better than anything we could have got, and definitely than what we had. And that's all. They're just looking for the 14th best quarterback, which may be what he is. But if you have a good team and you have the 14th best quarterback, ask Kyle Shanahan, you can win 10, 11 games. They're just trying to get to the playoffs.
Sure. But that guy, you better if you're not going to be a leader, if you're not going to be a positive influence in the locker room.
They went 7-10 with a guy we didn't even know who he was a year and a half ago.
But they might like that guy. That guy might have friends in the locker room, right?
I think they do, yeah. But he's not as good.
No.
So there's a balance.
I think there's a real chance they win 9 games and go to the playoffs, because 9 games, while it doesn't get the Colts to the playoffs, it might get the football team to the playoffs. The NFC and the NFC East is very different than the AFC.
Well, do they have the second best quarterback in the division right now?
Yeah.
Daniel's the worst. Obviously, Dak's the best, but Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Jalen. Now, Jalen's a better guy. How about that game? That game's going to be, I think it's at Philly.
Well, there'd be both of them. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking the Colts. Oh, because the Commanders play the Colts too. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh, the Commanders play the Colts too?
So Carson Wentz plays the Colts and obviously the Eagles twice. You think he gets booed at Philly? He wasn't really. It's not like he was Ben Simmons to them,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they won a championship without him. It was more painful for him than it was for them. You know what I mean? Like, I think Philadelphia was more traumatizing for Carson Wentz than it was for the Eagles fans.
Was it you that told me a story about him and maybe a guy that is in charge, and they crossed paths on the field, and he just never broke stride?
That he might have blown off Jeffrey Lurie? Yeah.
Maybe he did Jim Irsay too.
Maybe.
One thing I've heard about him is he's just, I think his EQ, and it's just, I hate this when people are like, well, he's, religious, can't really hang out. There are a lot of religious guys in the league. Like, you can either
look at the post-game prayer circle. There's people in it.
You either can deal with people or you can't, and clearly he struggles at it.
Yeah. Did you see, who did I see right today? Maybe it was a reporter in Seattle. Maybe it was one of the radio guys in Seattle. It was like, talked to a former Russell Wilson teammate, asked if Russell ever went out with teammates. The answer I got back, never, not once. How is that possible? Well, maybe it's true.
Why I asked someone, I said, well, what really is the difference between Carson and Russell, not on the field, but off the field? And he thought that Russell could just do a little better job in the building of, like, maybe they resent him for his fame and stuff, but I think from a football standpoint could find a way to get along better. But I think it's going to be a pretty big test in Denver, the microscope. Did you feel like that Athletic article was, I don't want to say a hit piece from Seattle, but just we want some stuff out there. Like, we're not just willy-nilly trading this guy, or has that stuff kind of been out there before?
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was a lot new in it.
Mailed in the season?
I mean, after the broken finger?
Wasn't there a line like they thought that he kind of was over the season or mailed in the season or something?
Oh, well, that would be new then. Although it felt like that watching him at times.
Yeah, and again, was it that critical of John and Pete in that thing? I felt more critical of Russell.
No, I mean, I think the part that it even kind of set up like, well, the reason Pete pulled back on the Brian Schottenheimer offense was because they weren't winning. So yes, I would say it was more critical of Russell. It's easy to say this. I know I said this after Harbaugh left the Niners. When you have somebody great and you can't figure out a way to make it work, that's on everybody. Easier said than done, right? Harbaugh might just be really difficult. Now, is it worth getting Harbaugh out of the building so you can hire Jim Tom Sula? Nah. But if you can fix it and find a better way, and it feels like, same deal, the Seahawks are going another direction without knowing what that direction is. And that's where the Niners were when they parted ways with Jim. They moved on just because they felt like we don't even have a better option.
And maybe Jim realized these guys don't want me. Fucking, I got to go. I think part of any relationship, it does take two people, even if one is more powerful. I think the Packers are a good example. They both did try to figure it out, and they did. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Aaron clearly was pretty impressed by whatever they did. That it's not really. They've done a good job. Haven't really made it that public. But I would say if there was like a legit like Wickersham article, you'd be probably pretty impressed of just. Goody texts me 3 times a week, or just, hey, just running this by you. And then Aaron might have like given it back, and because I saw like, well, it's just a money grab the whole time. Aaron Rodgers has been paid elite money for a decade. Whether he would have gone to the Broncos, the Jags, the USFL, stayed on the Packers, they were giving him $150 million. I don't think Aaron was really about the money. I think it was more about like the respect. Are you listening? And can we get along? And they did, because he was getting. Aaron Rodgers would have got that money no matter where he went, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like,
would he have gotten more?
might have. I think it truly was just about. Now, do you know what I think Aaron realized? I kind of like these guys. I think Russell and Pete. This is what I mean. I think Russell can't stand Pete, and I think at this point Pete's like, I'm done with this guy.
Yeah, and I think also Aaron's playing at such a high level that the Packers are more incentivized, and maybe Aaron's easier. Not people are individual people and are different people.
I think Aaron's easier.
Yeah, so like, saying Russ is difficult and Aaron is difficult can mean entirely different things. They're individual people. They're humans. Like, seems like Aaron, and you said this on the podcast yesterday, sure seems like a lot of Aaron's teammates stand up for him.
I'll give you another one. How often do you hear, like, me, Hackett, LaFleur, and Jordan, man, we had some great times in the quarterback room. I never hear, it's like me, Shoddy, Bevel, Russell, and Boykin just eating pizza late night, shooting the shit. You never hear those stories with Russell, ever. Like, there is just, if you had to pick, like, what team would you want to play for? The Russell Wilson Seattle Seahawks or the Green Bay Aaron Rodgers Packers? It wouldn't even be a question for me. I'd be like, I'll go the Green Bay Packers if I was a player. It just feels like their vibe. Their vibe clearly is probably a little looser since the McCarthy, Ted Thompson era ended, but it's a serious looseness. Like, they're not just, it's not like a fuck around operation there in Green Bay, right? But it also feels like we're guys, we're just having, like, it felt whatever they had the last couple of years with Hackett and LaFleur and Aaron and Jordan. Like, that's, people keep going, like, where are they going to trade Jordan? Well, I think Aaron likes Jordan. I think that's pretty clear. And two, they're just going to trade him for like a 5th round pick. Well, they still need someone to be the backup. He makes like $3 million. Just keep him. I think I saw Albert Breer or Peter Schrager say today, like, unless they get like a second round pick, and no one at the combine thinks that they're going to get a 2nd round pick, he's probably just going to stay on the team. They like the kid. Aaron likes the guy. He's more physically gifted than probably most backups. Even if he's not a starter, he's still something to work with, right?
Knows the system.
Yeah, like the guy.
Cheap.
Why does Russell never have these, like, just him and the O-lineman eating some dogs,
Well, It's like, what was Aaron's thing? Like, to the Friday crew, much love. He's got like this guys who go, he takes golf in Montana with him and whatever.
And I don't think it's an excuse, like, because I think some people say, well, Aaron's, even if he's dating someone, she lives in L.A., Russell's. Yeah, I mean, Brady was pretty good at it, and he's been married for a decade, right? Feels like Peyton was pretty good at it. Like, this, it's just part of your job, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of, and it just feels like Russell, I don't know if he views he's too cool for it. I know maybe he just doesn't want to do it. I don't know. Maybe the guys are like, yeah, I'm glad. I don't really want to hang out with them.
Yeah, it does seem that way. By the way, John, just saw this piece of news. Thought I'd bounce it off you. Did you see who that was?
John Feliciano?
Did you see the photo?
No, click on it again.
Tell me who the photo is.
Derek Papa?
I'm pretty sure that's bigger Klay Thompson.
That's a good one, too.
I saw it I just saw it pop up. I'm like, what's the news with Klay? And why does Klay look like this? It was, John Feliciano. Got cut.
Remember who drafted him? Reggie
McKenzie, yeah. Good call.
Still in the, I think Reggie would tell you, still in the league, decade later.
That's a good pick. What round was he picked in?
I think like 4th or 5th.
Yeah, good pick. All right, tick, 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 tick. Jimmy Garoppolo trade incoming. We're waiting. What do you think about the Jimmy Garoppolo market in the moment after the Carson Wentz trade? 2/3 for Carson, conditional third, could become a second.
I mean, you have had the last 2 years, 2 guys start every single game. And both of them, Rivers was headed the wrong way. Carson was a weird guy. But they started 16, 32, 33 games, right? And actually more because Phillips started a playoff game, so 34 games. How could you trade for a guy, even if it was cheap, that you're still going to have to pay $27 million for? So even if I gave up a 5th, I got to pay $27 million for an injured guy? Like, I know people keep saying it. People keep tweeting it. I don't know, man. Could you do that?
Well, I go back to this. Like, I think the short answer to what you just said is no. The long answer is, well, what are my other options? And who else would be interested? And who else might do what I'm not willing to do?
Well, how much they would have to have some options to pull the trigger on this today, right? They have to have, like, whatever their contingency plan. They're not just pulling the trigger and then not having a plan.
Who?
The Colts.
Oh, well, I think that I said it, and some people on Twitter were like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I'm just telling you what I believe to be what I know to be a fact. I think one of their options is Nick Foles because they like him. He's on the Bears.
Yeah.
So it would cost them nothing, right? Nick is owed money. The Bears aren't just going to cut him, but they'd be happy to trade him and save themselves some money.
So what could they get for him, like a 6th-round pick or something?
Whatever, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't matter. It used to be that Indy would have to restructure his deal because they had Carson, but they don't have Carson anymore. So they don't have to worry about Nick Foles' $10 million. Would have been insane to acquire that during the year. Now it's not crazy.
Is he as good as Carson Wentz, guy?
Now you could argue, yeah, but that's not exactly the math that Indy's playing, right? Part of it is like, how good are you? Part of it is how much can we trust you? Part of it is, can you just do what we're telling you to do? Because we think we can run the ball and play defense and all that other stuff. Now, I agree with you.
Besides some of his runs in Philly, he does some weird things.
Oh, well, he is more of a freestyle guy. People don't think of him that way. You're right, because he's not a great athlete and he doesn't play necessarily. But yeah, when they get down is when fun stuff happens with Nick Foles.
Yeah, he's not like I'm Mr. Just dick and dunk. Like, hey, I'll just
I'm not saying he's their number one option. I'm just saying that I do think he is an option.
I think he makes sense there.
Rap Sheet said it. We did a video about it on the podcast Tuesday. And Rap Sheet said there's interest from the Colts and Jimmy Garoppolo, or at least there's a match there. I think it makes a lot of sense. But to go back to your initial question, part of this is like, well, what's Pittsburgh going to do, right? Denver, we know, is now done. We know that Washington football team, who had been a Jimmy destination, is done.
Packers are set.
Packers are set. Deshaun's kind of out there. Seahawks are not an option for Jimmy. So we don't think. Doesn't match. So
would you trade him there for a 4th if that was your best option?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how to play him.
I mean, Belichick sent multiple guys to the Bills.
Why not? Whatever. So especially if it was like 27 million. But I think part of it is like, how many guys are out there? What are you willing to do? Is Pittsburgh willing to do it? And are you willing to do it? And if you're both willing to do it, then somebody's got to do something that, makes them uncomfortable, which is acquire a player. Now, you get your doctor, look at his shoulder. One of my questions is with Washington. And just answer me as we go through this scenario. Commandos. If they had offered the Niners the Wentz trade, would the Niners have accepted that for Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yes.
Right. So did they value...
No contingency. 2/3 deal.
Yeah. Did they value Carson Wentz more than they valued Jimmy Garoppolo?
1,000%.
Would they have traded Would they have preferred to trade less for Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think, though, we got to take a step back. Carson, as of March 9th, is a more valuable player when their money is very similar and one guy's healthy and one guy's hurt.
True. But I also think Jimmy, it might have been that Carson Wentz said, yeah, football team, don't worry. I'm happy to whatever you guys need. I'd rather be there than here. Don Yee might have told Washington he doesn't want to be there. We think there's better options for him out there. He doesn't want to be there. And Washington was like, fine, whatever. But 2/3, the Niners would have taken 1/3 for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think. So there's the potential that the Colts traded Carson Wentz and in return got more than they will then have to send to the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes.
And they're going to get a quarterback they want more for less than what they just sold Carson Wentz. It'd be an interesting, as a few people on Twitter have noted, Chris Ballard getting a lot of love. He'd get a lot of love for that one.
Where would he get a lot of love if he did what deal?
Unloaded Carson, got more for Carson than took one of those thirds and sent one of those thirds to the 49ers.
You think Jimmy Garoppolo's getting a 3rd round pick?
No, my point is he would get whatever it is he's going to pay the Niners for Jimmy is going to be less than what he is going to buy Jimmy with some of the change from his Carson Wentz trade.
Do you think if right now there was a 4th round pick from the Colts on the table, Jimmy Garoppolo would still be on the team?
The answer to that should be no. I don't think he'd be on the team. I think they'd take it, but
they got a couple days. They got a couple days to wait.
We just watched Washington give a 3rd and a conditional 3rd for a guy that we know the team that had him didn't want. It's similar.
Has not missed a game in multiple years. Physically more gifted. Think about this guy. Jimmy missed 6 games in 20. He missed 2.5. He's missed 8.5 games in 2 seasons. Carson's 0 games. 8.5. Yeah, and he's got surgery currently. I mean, there's a lot going on with Jimmy Garoppolo's old body, beside from the flawed play, with Carson has too. To me, is the separating factor.
I will say,
Carson tore an ACL, so was Jimmy.
Let me add a 3rd person to this equation, which is Don Yee, right? because we always talk about the two teams. There's the two teams talking. The Niners and not the Niners. Donnie and Jimmy had to be really, really confident, like extremely confident that this surgery was going to go well, to delay it, or try rehab, right? Like, I think they had to feel like, now part of it, as we talked about the other day, it benefit them to not be able to get a trade because then you'll just have to cut me. But I think they had to feel like they knew kind of what was out there in order to play this game, because you do run the risk that recovery takes longer than you think, and then you're not ready for the season, and you're definitely not getting signed if nobody thinks. Because here's the thing, if you're Don Yee, you would say, right?
Jimmy, do not go to the waste management. We cannot have you filmed when you're supposed to be rehabbing. He's like shirt off, shots with chicks,
Jimmy shot a commercial down in Southern California the other day before his surgery for Travis Matthew.
I do wonder, like, everyday life, like me and you had the injury, you wouldn't notice as much, like, to throw the football, right?
Sure. But think about, just play out the conspiracy theory that Don Yee postponed surgery to get cut. If Don Yee postponed surgery to get cut, Don Yee would still have to get Jimmy on a team after they cut him. So let's say he said, I'm getting cut. We're out of here, Jimmy. They're not going to be able to trade you. They cut him on March 16th, okay? Or March 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to – he still wants to sign on March 17th or March 16th, right? Don Yee doesn't want to wait until July 4th to sign with the team.
Most amount of money available that day, yeah.
So he's got to be confident, trade or cut, that teams are going to be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo while he is rehabbing his shoulder.
Yes.
And I got to think that he knew that teams would still be okay if he got a doctor to say everything went fine, that Don Yee knows that there would be teams interested in Jimmy Garoppolo even if he's rehabbing his shoulder surgery.
Because don't you imagine, like, from March 16th, by the time we get to March 20th, there'll probably be like $850 million spent. So there's all this money available, and it's all going to disappear in a short period of time, at least the majority of it. So you're right. He's going to want to pounce. The other thing, though, with pouncing is your options. It's a little different. He can control where he goes right now, and he might okay a trade to a place or decline a trade to a place that if he was a free agent, he actually might sign with because they might offer the most money, right? So it'd be complete. It's like two different avenues. Right now, he's on one street, and it has a direct kind of route, and he kind of knows the homes that he's driving by. If he is released, I would say the street changes. You might give in to, like, hey, the New York Giants are going to offer you $20 million. I'll tell you, you're basically starting Daniel Jones. You'll have to compete, but you're going to win the job. It's like you might be open to things that you would not okay right now. I just think your mindset's a lot different because, like, I control the trade. I'll get you. When you're a free agent, I'd say there's a little more desperation because part of controlling the trade is like we're getting paid no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll restructure a little bit to go 22, 23. You're a free agent. It's like, hey, Jimmy, we'll give you $15 million and incentivize another 10. You're like, I was used to making 27. So I do think it's not a slippery slope, but there's just these couple. This is when Don Yee is really making his money. He's never had to deal with this with Tom. Honestly, he's never had to deal with this with Jimmy, right? He was all with the New England, gets traded, immediately signs.
But Don Yee didn't only represent Tom. Like, he's represented other players. But
I'm just saying,
years.
he's never had but those are his two most expensive clients. You get quarterback money. Like, this is, I would say the next 48 hours is just a big Jimmy Garoppolo career moment, right? Because I would say by the time we get to Sunday, do you expect, like, we're recording this, we're talking on Wednesday. Do you think we go into the weekend without knowing anything on Jimmy Garoppolo where he's getting traded? Because everyone keeps saying, and I
agree said early tampering is Sunday, right?
Well, obviously, it's not the window of these trades, right?
No, I know. I'm just saying, just to back up, just so people understand the timeline, the early tampering window starts legal on Sunday.
But see,
so it makes a lot of sense that we would know.
But he's not a free agent. Like, you're dealing with trades. You can do that right now. Like, technically, I can't talk to Lakeland Tomlinson or offer him a deal right now. Right? We could just talk numbers, but I can't give you a contract. Like, you can do everything you need to do with Jimmy. Because you're just doing it's a separate transaction.
Yeah, good point. I mean, unless he were to get cut, then he would need to know, but they wouldn't cut him before.
Well, if he did, quote unquote, let's say he got cut today, you're right, they wouldn't cut him before. But if he did, he, like Amari Cooper, would immediately be eligible to talk because he's the vested veteran. Like, he's in this weird class. But as you see with Amari, like, Dallas was trying to get people to call. Like, they haven't cut Amari, right? Like that was a plant. Like, the one thing, the Niners haven't really planted anything with Jimmy beside, like, maybe today, like, Colts are interested. They might be, but they might not be. But there definitely are just some quarterbackless teams that Jimmy still has value. I don't have a great feel. Like, if you told me I wouldn't say a mystery team, but if you're like, they ended up okaying a trade. They were able to unload Sam Darnold, and he's on the Panthers right now because they picked up his full salary. Like, I could believe something like that because Don Yu's like, hey, Jimmy, this is the only place we're going to make $27 million.
Right.
Because I think we both agree if they had to go worst case and cut him, he's not getting $27 million. Honestly, injured, it feels like 15.
Not for 1 year. I could see him getting 2 years that add up to that. For that,
I have a hard time seeing the 2 years once the surgery thing came out. What I think you'd want to do is like 13 to 15 it, and then heavily incentivize it where it's like, hey, man, you throw some touchdowns, you go to the playoffs, you can make 30. We'll treat you like a legit starting quarterback.
But don't you think, even with a surgery, if he's a free agent, somebody would give him more than 1 year?
No.
Even if it's sometimes
8.5 games the last 2 years. He's injured all the time.
I know, but to me, you make it 2 years, $35 million, $20 million guaranteed, or 18 guaranteed. So it's basically a 1 year contract.
I just would be like, well, we'd have to eat a couple $1 million the following year if it goes poorly. Why would we want to even do that? Who are we bidding against? Because I think that's the question with Wentz. Like, who are they bidding against?
Well, a trade is interesting. I mean, I do think that you can justify if you're Pittsburgh, you can justify if you're Indy, if Jimmy's a free agent signing Jimmy Garoppolo.
What I wonder,
maybe you just make something like, hey, the contract voids if you can't pass a physical by July 31st.
What I wonder with GMs, and I'd be fascinated to ask someone, like, let's say the Saints are like, hey man, we'll give you a fifth, and they're like, hey, we'd love to trade him to you, but we need your fourth because we have a fourth on the table. It's not as good as your fourth. Would you start calling around to teams that you think might be interested and be like, are you offering them a fourth? Or would you just like gut feel it?
I gotta think that's based on relationships, right? If you've got people you can trust to ask that question to.
Yeah. Like, hey,
you know who you ask? Schefter.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's why he gets the information. Because he knows.
It's an exchange. It's a two-way street. Or you ask Schrager, depending on which coach it is.
Yeah, if it's the McVay-Shanahan tree, get all the information.
Schrager's like, hold on, I got them both right here.
I do think the 2 year deal with Jimmy went out the window the moment he got the surgery. I think if he was fully healthy, I agree. He'd get the 2 year, $38 million or something.
But don't you think it can be fake? It's a fake 2 year. It's a pass the physical. The second year's not guaranteed.
Well, it is fake, but you put the money technically in the back year because you want to make it cheaper this year to operate, and you're kind of setting yourself up that, like, if it does go poorly, you cut him, and you're like, you want to just take a $10 million dead cap hit next year for Jimmy?
Well, you don't want to, but Wentz just got traded for a third and a conditional third.
I know, but Wentz is healthy and he's just physically more gifted.
I get it, but if you had told me Wentz got traded for 1/3, I'd go, okay, that makes sense.
I think health is an underrated thing that he's brought to the table the last couple of years.
Well,
8.5 games Jimmy's missed. 8.5.
I know.
And we're not even counting the 3. He played in 3 starts, 16. He missed 12 starts in a season.
And said he didn't miss for one injury. It's multiple injuries.
I think he's hurt every body part.
Evan on
concussion, maybe he hasn't got a concussion.
Evan said on the stream that Eisen said combine whispers pointed to Carr to the Colts. Is that true? Can somebody corroborate that?
Did you see Ben Albright's tweet today? Basically, like, it'll be funny if Josh McDaniels gets rid of his quarterback because he won't take a team-friendly deal. And,
I did not see that tweet.
I just go back and forth that I would imagine that they're doing the Brady push, but it's like, okay, you want me to sign a 4-year, $120 million deal, 3 years. Maybe it's 3 years, $90 million. I'm giving you such a discount. What are you doing for me when I can know I would get more money? Dramatically more. It'd be one thing, like, I didn't give Kevin Durant credit. Remember when it was like, Kevin Durant took a discount. It was like $29 million or $27.8 and allowed them to do a mid-level. It's like, give me a fucking break. After taxes, but you don't even notice. But there is a big difference between, like, wait, you want me to play for $29 million when it's pretty clear on the open market, right or wrong, I would get at minimum like 44? Like,
right.
We're talking big gaps here.
Right.
And you're signing multiple years, so you start doing the math, you're like, We're talking, I'm giving up $43 million over 3 years to someone I don't know. And let's face it, comes from not the most trustworthy place. Like, it took me 4 years to build up trust with my neighbor. And now I got these new guys that are like, trust me. It's like, don't you guys come from the Patriots? That'd be my thing. Would you trust those two guys?
Trust? No, not trust.
I don't think you could.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
I can't see Josh trying to trade away a QB the Pats tried to trade for last year unless they don't believe they can get a favorable new deal with him. I guess the question would be, what are you getting back? Like, that makes you do it now and not make him just play out the season, unless you think he's going to, hold out and skip the year.
But is a favorable deal 4 years or 3 years, $120 million and $100 million guaranteed and, $40 million a year?
I think that's a favorable deal. I mean, you're talking about defensive lineman guarantee for a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
does
Nick
that?
Bosa is going to get more than that.
Easily.
So I would call that a very favorable Raiders deal. What do you think?
I just think these Tom Brady guys could be a little warped in their thinking, because it would be like, well, Tom Brady just literally signed for 2 years, $25 a year.
Yeah.
They're like, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Look at what he does. Like, yeah, I have nothing. Yeah, I don't care. I can see it getting weird. I feel like it's already kind of just weird out there in the.
Well, you know what it kind of feels like? It feels like Russell Wilson light. Not that Derek is being Russell at all. I'm not saying that. But in the sense that, like, it's just kind of out there and we're not exactly sure why it's out there, but even when it gets shot down, it doesn't feel fully shot down. And I think contract's a big part of that. When you do not, and it's very simple with coaching, when you don't have many years left on your contract, it reaches a point where we go, what the hell's going on? And with quarterbacks, they normally just, Josh Allen might as well give him a gold card with a lifetime extension on it.
The problem for the Colts, them and the Raiders don't even match. They don't have a first-round pick. They just don't have a pick to trade for Derek. They have nothing to give him.
Jacob Eason still on their team? Players don't. Then you need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Unless there's, the one thing you never know, but it doesn't feel like this feels like a stretch, but I'll say it. Just, is there a quarterback that somebody likes in a draft? I don't think a Derek Carr trade is out of the question. It just seems to me that this year it's a little weird this year.
But is he going to play the season on the deal? That's, to me, the question, right?
Well, would he? What you're saying is, would he hold out and not play if they don't give him a new contract? That's what you're saying, right?
I don't even mean hold out. I just mean, is he comfortable playing on the 1 year, $20 million deal?
But if he's not willing to hold out, what does that mean?
Yeah, he'd have to. Holding out is his only play.
So that's the question. It's like, no, he's not comfortable. But what would he do if it came to that? I think he'd play for Josh.
Or trade demand.
Or trade demand. Which they'd go, all right, fine. I think if you're him, what's the fastest way to make more money? Become a free agent. Well, you're not a free agent, and they can tag you. So what's the second fastest way to make more money? Play well for Josh McDaniels. I think that's the second fastest way to make more money. I don't think holding out is going to get Josh to pay him more as much as playing for Josh and playing well for him.
Well, I'll tell you, if I was Josh, what I'd do would be like, okay, it's 29 this year. That number's going to go up. Let's say it's 35 next year. So we could have Derek Carr on essentially a 2-year, $55 million deal.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is, for the most part, $35 million cap hit is not ideal because when you do get the franchise tag, it all goes on there. That's why people try to avoid it, especially a quarterback. Remember, it was crazy when the Commandos did it. Because I bet Aaron Rodgers, whenever his contract details come out, I bet his cap hit in year one's like $7 million. Now, in 4 years it'll be enormous, but
yeah, who did I just do? Somebody just did that. Was it did the Bills end up picking up the option on Josh Allen or something that made his cap hit very small?
I'm sure.
But you're right. I mean, you got to tag Devontae. You got to sign Devontae, right? So you're right. Yeah.
But part of it is like usually when you sign, part of the incentive to do a deal is like you don't have a $35 million cap hit while you're first couple years of coaching him and trying to win in the playoffs, right? You can use his cap space to your advantage. You franchise tag him next year. It's just, it's not like cumbersome, but it's not an ideal situation on your cap. That's
you really you franchise tag him to trap him, not so much to make him play on the tag, right?
Yeah,
and that's where it was unique with Cousins.
But if you're franchise tagging him, if we got to that point, it'd probably be pretty weird.
If he gets to that point, you probably end up trading him to somebody who has an extension worked out.
It's going to be weird until he either signs a contract or they figure it out. People will try to make it weird when they extend like Crosby and Renfroe. Be like, look, they're priorities. And they'll combine for like $48 million guaranteed. Like, yeah, that's like Derek's signing bonus.
Yeah. I also think if you're Carr and you're going to take a team-friendly deal, whatever that means, there's no reason to do that early. Like, you play out that string as long as you can.
Problem for the Raiders, though, is some quarterbacks are going to sign some contracts, and the numbers are going to get really outrageous. So even like, yeah, I'm not Stafford or I'm not a $48 or $50 million quarterback, but I ain't a $20 million quarterback, and I'm not. You want me to play at $31 million? Like, let's be real, $39 million is a team-friendly deal.
Right.
That's where it starts getting weird. Because a team-friendly deal
another reason
at this
to wait.
point is is high.
Another reason to wait, right? That your team-friendly deal gets better the longer you wait.
As Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bobby Wagner got cut yesterday. I read an article from like a month ago. It was one of those I saw, or you texted me. I was like, damn. Then I did some quick Googling, and I read an article. I guess what we talked about this on the podcast when he tweeted, first they love you, then they hate you, or whatever. Richard Sherman said on his podcast a month ago, they're going to cut Bobby Wagner. And there was an article in the Seattle Times about it like a month ago. So his number was like $20 million.
Yeah.
If you're Jamal Adams right now, I mean, can you demand a trade again?
Who wants to trade for Jamal Adams? Can't cover. He makes fucking too much money.
They should have put Jamal Adams in the Russell Wilson trade.
My one take though on Bobby Wagner is like, he's been there a long time. Like Ronnie Lott moved teams. You know what I mean? A lot of guys, you can pick the best players in the history of the league. Like, welcome to the NFL.
Also, he won his $20 million, but he don't want to play for that team.
No, but it's just like Bobby Wagner's get cut every year.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it makes total sense.
You're saying that. I just saw a lot of people like cutthroat business. Like,
I follow you. Yeah.
I was like, he thoroughly outlasted the other crew, right?
As anyone in any business, in any office knows, when it comes time to cut and budget, when you're the most expensive person or one of the most expensive people around, you're on edge because they can cut out a big chunk of the budget with one person.
For sure.
Making $20 million this year was going to be his cap.
Middlekauff,
Yeah.
But I think about Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, like Cliff Averill. Now some of these guys had like their necks broke and bodies broke down. Yeah. But Earl and Richard, he outlasted Richard Sherman by like 6 years. Earl Thomas even alive? Remember that thing at like something happened at like Ravens practice. He attacked a guy and then Glazer had the film. Remember that? It was like the Ravens were like, we're done with him. And he's never been seen.
Was that again. The one where he did middle finger on the way out, or that was something different?
No, I think that was when
that was an injury. He did middle finger to the Seattle sideline.
Yeah, they wouldn't extend him. He gets his leg shattered on the cart, middle finger at Pete. And then the next year he signs with the Ravens, attacks like the corner in training camp practice, or maybe it was like week 2, and the Ravens just cut him. Like they're just like, this guy's losing his mind. This guy's a lunatic. Crazy thing, the most normal was like just watching Richard. Like Richard just physically, his body started breaking down, but like clearly people liked Richard.
Very much. I think
Richard was Bobby 4 years ago, right? Remember his number, he was making a ton of money. It was like now he's injured, and they almost shorted him.
Yeah, I mean Bobby was. I didn't realize this till I looked. Second team All-Pro last year, which was probably too high, but. Probably playing a little higher level than Richard was, right, at the time? Although Richard was pretty good for the Niners.
He's going to the Rams.
He is going to the Rams.
That's what it feels like.
I read an article today in The Athletic about Aaron Donald. I think it was The Athletic. Basically, like, yeah, Aaron Aaron was mad that Rodney Harrison said that this could be his last game. That's what Aaron told. Rodney said, did you see this article?
No.
So you remember the Super Bowl Sunday, that story came out, like, is Aaron Donald going to retire? And it came from pregame meeting that week, just one-on-one with Rodney. Rodney's like, you got 15 more years. And Aaron's like, it's good, or this could be my last game, basically. Rodney says it. When they ask Aaron about it postgame, Aaron's like, yeah, I wish he hadn't shared it. That was just kind of between us. But he doesn't say, no, that's bullshit, right? And basically the article in The Athletic is like, he's got 2 kids that live in Pittsburgh. And when they were younger, before they started school, it was easy. They could fly out to see him all the time. But then the kids, started like grade school, and they can't come see Aaron all the time. And he has another child with his wife in LA, but he has 2 kids that live in Pittsburgh, and it makes it really hard. And his number one priority is his kids. And so, I didn't read the article and think Aaron Donald's about to retire, but I definitely didn't read the article and think Aaron Donald's isn't thinking about it at all, and the whole thing was made up.
Rodney made that up. That made sense.
No.
He's scheduled to make $14 million, and I saw that he wants 25.
Yeah, then you buy the plane, the kids fly with you.
I saw Andrew Whitworth's like, I've been in this league a long time. I've never seen anything like this guy. I've seen him every day in practice. Like, I just think that people get in his ear, like, you only have, Aaron, a couple more years of, like, this is you're the greatest human at what you do we've ever seen. I mean, bring her out here. If I was Kroenke, like, can we set them up out here? I know it's hard. I mean, he played out there. He must be from that area or whatever, but yeah, it sucks because I bet, like, he's like, I can't.
Pretty big deal. From Pittsburgh, went to Pitt. That's pretty cool.
And then became a legend. I mean, he's probably the second best player in the history of the school, right? Or is he better than Marino? Because now he's a champion.
I mean, Marino.
It'd be him and Marino would have to be on the Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. And Larry Fitzgerald. That's a pretty good Mount Rushmore.
God, they got 3. Jesus, I forgot about Larry.
Who's their 4th?
Shady Crackett, or
Well, I mean, who's their 4th?
Revis.
He went to Pitt?
Yeah.
Revis went to Pitt? I mean, I knew he was from, what was the town he's from?
Aloysius or
Alapiqua? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Alapiqua?
I mean, Revis can go Hall of Fame, so you'd probably have Revis over Shady.
I mean, Pitt might have an all-time Mount Rushmore.
Marino,
they do.
Larry, Revis, Aaron Donald. That's pretty good. I mean, you're talking about, unless you have Elway, Montana, Brady, or like Favre, you're basically got 4 guys that are literally starting on any team, any era ever.
Aliquippa.
Is that in PA?
Yeah, that's in PA.
Yeah.
I think, did I say alopecia?
I said Aloysius, which was Reggie Miller's middle name, right?
Reginald Aloysius. Pop Warner.
I think Pitt is an underrated, just like, it's a pretty big deal. Like, I remember being, Penn State's bigger, but I think Pitt gets respect. Like, if you went to out here, like you went to Washington or something, like, if I told you, you and I were somewhere, it's like, hey, James, he played running back at the University of Washington, or this guy played point guard at the University of Washington. You'd be like, damn, this guy's a fucking big time athlete, right? You say that about Pitt, like back in the Northeast, like this guy played at Pitt. It's like, it's a big deal. Like you're playing at the highest level, I don't think people on the West Coast would probably give Pitt its due.
No.
But if you really kind of, once you start bringing up names, you're like, damn, it's hard to crack that lineup.
Mike Ditka, Pitt.
Pretty good.
Tony Dorsett, Pitt.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Revis on the list for sure.
I mean, he's shorter lived. I mean, Fitz got to be like top 5 wide receiver ever, right?
I mean, holy smokes.
Marino a lock?
I mean, yeah.
Well, you'd have to say Donald's a lock. He's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champ. Could have been Super Bowl MVP.
Here's another one for you. 2-time Super Bowl champ and College Football Hall of Famer. He's not as good as these guys. But he used to be on ESPN all the time. You remember Mark May?
Yeah. Offensive lineman.
You remember the God, one of the greatest commercials of all time was the white chocolate Randy Moss commercial, the Good Old Boys. Just the good old boys. It was Jason Williams throwing alley-oops to Randy Moss in high school. never meaning no harm. And then it was like Randy Moss and somebody. And then it was like University of Florida highlights with Jason Williams. Do you remember that commercial?
Fuck yeah.
Oh, so good.
Because they were high school teammates, right?
Yeah. Wasn't there a 30 for 30 on Randy that a lot of it was going back to PA?
Yeah, when he got in that
or maybe it was a Football Life. I can't remember which.
I think it was a 30 for 30 when he got in the that fight at the bowling alley and the chairs got thrown. Or maybe that was Allen Iverson.
That was AI.
But I think Randy got in trouble for something too.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was supposed to go to Florida State. No, he was supposed to go to Notre Dame, and then Bobby Bowden called him, and even Bobby Bowden had to kick him off the team, and then he ended up at Marshall.
Yeah.
I think Allen Iverson and Randy Moss had some sort of fight that got him arrested. Allen specifically had the chair fight at the bowling alley. But I think Randy Moss had something too like that. Maybe it was at Florida State. Because he was supposed to go to Notre Dame at high school. He was like the number one recruit to Lou Holtz, and they said no last minute.
Rap Sheet's latest video on NFL Network. Things heated up pretty quickly for the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. His team's fielded calls. The team has fielded several calls about his availability. One obvious team is the Colts. And it says at the bottom of the video, Colts expected to pursue Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's why I stayed ready.
Yeah, it's one thing that's different about this, right, is Wentz just got traded to Washington. There wasn't football. There were some, people were saying some things, but it wasn't Rap Sheet just going on TV. Washington football team is interested in Carson Wentz.
You'd have to get your team doctor on the phone with the guy that did the surgery. I'm dying here.
Yeah, all right.
But don't you think that you would have to get on the phone with the doctor that just did the surgery?
Yeah, and hey, you're going to send us the X-rays, whatever. We're going to go through this and make sure that we're comfortable that everything went well. Yeah.
Jimmy's like, I'm good. I'm like, are we sure?
Jimmy's like, they're like, wait a second, Jimmy, aren't you right-handed? Jimmy's like, no, you guys must be. Oh, I see. Well, you were standing over there when you saw me. What is that from?
What if Jimmy faked it just to get less? So he could have.
Jimmy just showed up doing. He's like, "Oh yeah, I can do 100 reps right now, push-ups."
I can see that.
All right. Podcast coming back on Thursday, unless something happens between now and then.
You never know.
This was a YouTube-only live stream. That's what you watch. What you saw here today is not a podcast, just a live stream. So we appreciate it if you like the video, you subscribe to the channel, like the video. We do have a podcast. It's in the description below. The link to that, you can go subscribe to that as well. We appreciate that. March Madness is underway. So
let's go watch some games.
You got to take Gonzaga. How about Gonzaga 12.5 last night? That was wild.
Do you think the Gales could make the second day, or not the second day?
Yeah,
the Sweet 16. Depend on the draw.
Why not? That's what everyone always says. Depends on the matchup.
Yeah. If you're a 6,
the follow up when somebody says depends on the matchup is like, okay, how do you like them against Illinois?
Who do you play if you're 6 and 11?
11.
And then you would play like a 4-5
from the 5-12 game.
Is that what it is?
Do they end up in the same? Hold on, I'll pull up a bracket right here real quick.
Who does a 6-11 play? Is it 3-13? It's a little harder to beat threes. You get upset a 3.
Yeah, I think after like you can beat a 3. Where's this? Come on. When I need a bracket, can I get a bracket?
I hope 8 seconds. I don't want Coach K to win it all.
No?
I heard people think that like they could easily do it, and
I'd be surprised. So if you are the 4-13 plays the 5-12 in one side, yeah. So and then in the other side, a 4-13 plays a 6-11.
So you play a 4 if you win that game.
Depends. If you win you're asking about a 6-11 game.
If St. Mary's is 6,
you either play a 3 or a 4.
Then it'd be 6.
You either play a 3 or a 4 in the next round.
Oh, well, how's that? I thought you automatically either play the winner of like a 4-12.
No, some of the brackets. So who would in the? It's hard because you're in the same location, but you're actually not in the same bracket. So let me see if you.
No, but it doesn't matter who wins the game. You're automatically playing the winner of another game in a bracket.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is some 5-12 games lead to 4-13 games.
Yeah.
And some 6-11 games lead to 4-13 games.
How's that possible?
I don't know.
Does that sound
the
right?
Short answer to that. No, I didn't know that. I thought always it lines up with the same thing always, but
That does not sound great. I feel like they're just.
I'm telling you, look here. Kansas is a 1-16. They play the winner of an 8-9. A 1-16 always plays an 8-9. Okay.
Yes.
A 5-12. All right, let's look at a 7-10. A 7-10 always plays a 2-15. But these are different. A 5-12 sometimes plays a 4-13, and sometimes hold on a second. I've like a little minor dyslexia here. Sorry. 4-13 and 13-4 are getting me confused. So a 6-11 always plays a 3. A 5-12 always plays a 4. Thank you. It made no sense. I thought they had changed something in the tournament that I'd never seen before.
I was like, that's.
But there's 13 and a 13-4 and a 3-14 was throwing me off. I'm not dyslexic. I don't joke about that.
I think sometimes I am. I think everyone has their moments.
I think your brain like I think airplanes operate more consistently than just
I think there's a difference between
machines are predictable.
There's consistently dyslexic, which clearly some people are, and then I do think you can train your brain out of it. Clearly, people have talked about it. I do think naturally though, everyone it hits it every once in a while. It does with me. I was like, what? And you just read. I completely read that wrong.
The question here, I think multitasking. I've heard that men are worse at multitasking than women.
Do you find yourself when you're like on the phone with someone, like also looking at Twitter or something? Do you do that, like Instagram? Like if you're on your phone with your mom and you're like, "Am I not even listening? I'm just looking at Instagram while I'm talking to her on speakerphone."
I find a video call is a very different experience than a phone call because when you do a video call, you realize you can't do anything else. I mean, you can just like I'll talk to my mom, I'll wander around, whatever. But
sometimes I judge myself. Like, can I just listen?
Well, what if they're saying something that you don't care about?
Well,
the real question now is how will you find out about a Jimmy Garoppolo trade? And I don't just mean you, John. I mean everybody watching. Will it be you see it, the tweet? Will it be you get an alert? Will it be a text from a friend? Those are usually the big three. You just on and you see it, you get an alert, or a text from somebody.
If you tell me what time of day it is, I can tell you what's most likely for me. During the day, I think I'll see it on Twitter.
Unless you're working out.
Sometimes on Twitter.
Yeah, that's true. The Wentz one today, I told you, I wish I had logged all of the trades and things over sports history that I found out via text from John or anybody. You know what I mean? Like
a couple times I've been scrolling, and you know how on the scroll you can see like the 3 pictures of the top tweets, and I'll see Schefter's Twitter handle. I'll be like, I wonder if there's something good. And then I'll scroll, and it's like, the Browns have cut Terrence Mitchell. I'm like, God, that was underwhelming.
I love when you get the alert that's like, Browns sign former Oklahoma quarterback, or Browns trade for former Oklahoma quarterback. It's like, oh my God, they traded for Kyler? And then, of course, it's not Kyler. All right. Antoine says on eBay, people are selling phone booths. Is that true? You buy a phone booth on the internet?
What the fuck would you do with a phone booth?
I don't grow plants in it, make it a greenhouse. Phone booth for sale. $5,500.
Feels like what's it called? That generation, baby boomers, and probably slightly younger than them, maybe like in the mid to late 60s now. A little too much money, too bored. You know, that's.
But like one of these you don't want. There's a difference between a phone booth and like this thing. You know. What are you doing with that? $61. Vintage.
The phone booth is the entire phone, right?
Yeah, the phone booth is the booth.
Yeah.
Can I get here we go. Nope, I can't. All right, whatever.
Okay. Later.
That's when you know we've reached the end of the stream. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody.